Alrighty, we should be live. I'm going to make sure everything's working. And then we'll begin. Audio sounds good. Alrighty, we should be good. Welcome on into the long-term simulation, everybody. The finale for OFL 23. This is it. The end of the road is here. So how I formatted it was I simulated the first 10 seasons, and we'll take a pretty close look at all of those. Close look is in like 3 or 4 minutes per season, so I don't know how close that is. And then after that, I simulated all the way to the end, which brought us to the year 2050. That's how long it took us for our final player to retire. So, let's not waste any time and get into it, shall we? Welcome on in, everybody. As we will start with, I have a lot of new save files. We'll start with season number 1. I also want to point out, Nick gave me this idea when we were in VC like a week ago, that for the long-term sim draft classes, we use the classes from the Titan series. Because obviously those are on Madden 23, which is what we still have here. So I forgot to do it for the very first class, but the second one, the third one, the fourth one, and the fifth one are the 4 draft classes that we used for the Titans franchise. So let's start with the first one. So we'll take a look first at the standings. The rosters here are pretty similar. There were a handful of pretty big moves, which I wrote down by season. If I can open my notes app. Okay, so in the very first offseason of free agency, we had quite a bit of movement. Brandon Ayuk to the Steelers, Quentin Johnston to the Cowboys, Jonathan Allen to the Niners, Deshaun Watson to the Cowboys, TJ Hawkinson to the Cowboys, Trayvon Diggs to the Dreadnoughts, Caleb Williams to the Steelers, and Joe Burrow to the Dreadnoughts. Hayden Callaway and Jalen Hurts were replaced in the first offseason. So the Steelers won the North with their new quarterback, Caleb Williams. I don't really know why they signed him, but clearly it paid off. The Bengals also made the playoffs. Texans won the South. Bills won the East. New England got in. Jets miss out at 10-7. And then the Chargers won the West again with the Broncos grabbing a playoff spot. The Explorers won the disaster that is the NFC North. The Dreadnoughts won the South with Joe Burrow. Eagles get a playoff spot. Commies won the NFC East with the Eagles and the Cowboys getting a spot. Cougars at 10-7 miss out. And then the Nighthawks win the West at 11-6. So I don't know how many of you saw the Super Bowl result at the top right, but Buffalo's back and they lost to Washington. The Commanders finally get over the hump. They win the championship. Here's a look at the entire playoff bracket. The Eagles get first rounded per usual. The Bills beat the Bengals per usual, only by 2. Progress. The Eagles won a playoff game. That's surprising. And we beat the Texans per usual. This is not a half a ring. This is like a 10th of the ring. I own Nick, per usual. The MVP was Patrick Mahomes. Kelvin Pickney won his first Offensive Player of the Year, and I say first because that's a common theme. Micah Parsons won Depoy, and then Mac Jones won the OFL Bowl MVP. You're not going to recognize the rookies, but you may recognize the rookies for the next 4 classes. So I decided to save it after each draft so we could take a look. For those of you who watched the Titan series, this might be pretty cool. For those of you who didn't watch it, you're probably not going to know any of these names. But a lot of familiar faces have joined us for the OFL long-term sim. So this is the first class, which featured guys like Scotty Piggins, Cardell Simpson. The number 1 pick was Cyrus Okpoko Jr. He went to the Snowhawks. Clyde Williamson, ironically, was drafted by the Lions, the exact same location he ended up with in that series. Masaru Lee, the other top quarterback, was drafted by the Minnesota Vikings. Scotty Pickens was drafted by probably the worst possible location, the Denver Broncos, who obviously, as we know, don't have much of an offense. And then the last super notable, Kiki Rodriguez was drafted by the Cowboys again. Who needs Nick Chubb? And then Cardell Simpson was drafted by the Snowhawks as well. As for free agency, notable movement includes... Hold on, I accidentally backed out of my note. Kool-Aid McKinstry to the Nighthawks. Zach Lawler to the Nighthawks. Hayden Callaway to the Nighthawks. Busy free agency for OKC. Jair Alexander and Josh Allen, the pass rusher, to Mexico. Trevion Henderson to the Dreadnoughts. And Matt Corral, 30 years old, only a 76 overall, to the Memphis Steamers to back up Carson Michaels. I was excited for him to get an opportunity to start. Never happened. So this is the second season. Oh, you guys don't even get to see who won the OFL Bowl at the top. So as we take a look at the standings, Bengals won the North, Steelers grab a playoff spot, Texans win the South, Bills win the East, Jets get a playoff spot, Broncos and Chargers make it out of the West. Pretty much the exact same situation we had last year. In the North, the Lions, I don't even know who would have been their QB. They win the division. Monarchs get a wild card spot. Dreads win the South. Eagles win the NFC East. Dallas at 6-11. Is the dynasty over? Washington only finishes 8-9, while the Niners, Seahawks, and Nighthawks all grab playoff spots. I don't even remember who would have won the OFL Bowl here. It is the Bills. Ring number 3 for Buffalo. They beat the Eagles 32-29. So the Eagles not only win a playoff game, they win 2. They make it to the bowl, nearly beat the Bills. We lost as the 2 seed. Good memories. At least we didn't lose to Buffalo. The number 1 seeded Broncos got first rounded. And the 7 seeded Chargers nearly made it all the way. As for the end of season graphic, Will Anderson won the OFL Bowl MVP. Mahomes won the regular season MVP. Kelvin Pickney won his second Offensive Player of the Year. Myles Garrett won Depoy. And then Clyde Williamson and Jack Ace won the Rookie of the Years. That'll bring us to the second draft, which features guys such as Elijah Bryant, the running back. Top QBs include Kate Hutchinson, Bartholomew Blunt, Kane Sanders. I called it Draft 4. I mistyped. This is the second draft, not the fourth. So as we can see here in the NFL draft, the number 1 pick was Jameer Jefferson, the 84 overall corner to the Raiders. Gilbert Smith to the Cougars. He was a monster. Elijah Bryant went 6th, and ironically, he was drafted by the Titans. It's perfect that he ends up in Tennessee. I don't know how he ended up at pick 6, because in the actual series, we got him in the second round, but I'm happy that he's still on the Titans. That's cool. Not a lot of QBs. Actually, no quarterbacks at all yet. What is happening? There's too many good quarterbacks. Dior Antoine was drafted by the Monarchs. Brody Kluby was drafted by the Lions. Yeah, no quarterbacks. Finally, in the second round, we have Kate Hutchinson to the Rams. Bartholomew Blunt, ironically, goes to the Colts. Sidney McDonald to the Snowhawks. Kane Sanders to the Titans. Isaiah Gordon to the Explorers. What about Kareem Kamara? He was the X factor of the group. DeAndre Smith at Superstar. He goes to the Jets. Where was Kamara? Jeez, how long did it take? Margot Burnley, the quarterback before Puma at Ohio State, to the Panthers. Jose Alvaro to the Seahawks. Did I pass him? Latavius Mirrington to the Eagles. Sterling Yorkshire to the Cougars. He was good. National champion. Sterling Yorkshire. Where's Kamara? Did I pass him? I had to have passed him. He did not go after Luca Franco. No shot. I definitely missed him. No, he just didn't get picked. What in the world? Okay. Ernie Capelar, I think, would have been season 3. Yeah, he would have been the 3rd season. I don't know where Kareem Kamara is. That's weird. How did he not get drafted? He was like a second-round pick in the series. Anyway, season 3. Hi, I'm new here. Welcome in, Clover. So the Bills won the OFL Bowl again. They beat the Eagles again, 2 years in a row. That's ring number 4 for Buffalo. They've made it, what, 6 seasons in a row, I think? Bengals win the North. Steelers get a wild card. Texans win the South. Bills win the East. Chargers, Raiders, Broncos in the West. Wow, how creative. The exact same teams. The Monarchs win the North. Dreads win the South. Eagles and Panthers get in. Eagles win the East. Seattle and the Nighthawks make it in out of the West. Oh, look, it's the Bills. I'm shocked. I forgot. Did I go through the free agency moves? I don't think I did. So, in free agency, Matt Corral left Memphis. He signed with Oklahoma City to be their backup. Josh Allen, the pass rusher, signed with Portland. Joe Mixon to London. Brock Bowers to Pittsburgh. Cameron Dantzler to Minnesota. Brandon Fitzgerald, the former number 1 pick, was drafted by Baltimore. And this was probably the biggest stage of retirements. Guys like Jalen Ramsey, Nick Chubb, TJ Watt all retired last year. How did the Cowboys do without Chubb and Watt? Not very good. That's more than they won last year, though. I think Cocky Butt Cannon, for what it's worth, is the official starter now. He has started for the last 2 seasons after Deshaun Watson started the first season. This is the playoff bracket. We lost to the Bills again. Whoop-de-doo. How many times is that? 5? 6? That's what it feels like. The Eagles steamrolled through the playoffs, winning all their games by at least 3 scores. My favorite part of this season, though, was the awards. So the MVP ended up being Daniel Godley, who had a godly season, literally. Isaiah Thomas won the OFL Bowl MVP. Kellen Pickney and Matthias Zerberg won the Players of the Year, while Bubu Drame and George Charbonnet II win the Rookie of the Years. So let's take a look at Daniel Godley's numbers, because I don't remember a QB season that was better than this one. 5,800 yards, that's a record. 51 dubs, 14 interceptions, passer rating of 117. So right now, that is the all-time record. We'll see if that holds up. But that's the all-time record, comfortably passing Desmond Ridder in the sim year. Joe Burrow this season, not far behind. And then in terms of touchdowns, tied for second with 2026 Mac Jones. The most amount of touchdowns that we've had somebody throw in the OFL this season. Took him long enough. He's like 25. By the way, look at it. Look at his player card. So this was around his prime. Filthy. Look at all the 99s. Pretty good. All right, let's move into the following offseason. The Season 3 draft featured guys such as Romeo Colucci. Obviously, he's the big one. This was another really good quarterback class. Justin Tucker was here. Who else was picked in the first round? Barrett Cherokee, I think, was in this draft. Ernie Capillar, as MP said earlier. I think there were a couple other players, too. Maybe this was the Kareem Kamara draft. Oh, that's why I got confused. This was the year that Kareem Kamara got drafted. As for free agency, not a ton of moves. T. Higgins to Baltimore. The Bengals spent money for the first time in the long-term sim. We signed Budda Baker and J.C. Horn. Part of the reason why we spent money is because we lost Fanu Olushanu. What was his name? No, Olorosu. Fanu Olorosu, the defensive tackle we had in the last season of OFL who won the Defensive Rookie of the Year. He signed in London. Never forget the one free agency class where the Raiders signed Josh Allen and Tucker was just on the bench. There's a similar story with that, with a certain quarterback in this class. Myair Jahir from Kent State went number 1. A lot of defense at the top. The first 7 picks were on defense. The top quarterback was Justin Tucker. He was drafted by Dallas. Cocky butt cannon. No more. Justin Tucker, the new QB for the Cowboys. As for Romeo Colucci, he was drafted by the Broncos, teaming up with Scotty Pickens. That's pretty cool. What's not cool is how Romeo Colucci's career went. I'll spoil the entire thing real quick because his career wasn't all that eventful. So he ended up being the backup in Denver for like 3 years. He started half a season, and then they signed a replacement, who you'll see in a little bit, ended up being pretty good. And then Colucci was just a backup his entire career until I think 2042, where he was like 35 years old. First year as a starter with the Raiders, wins the QB of the Year award, and then never starts again. So he only started 1 full season his entire career, and he literally won the best quarterback. Poor guy. There's too many good QBs. That's why all these guys are, for one thing, getting drafted late, and also somebody like Romeo Coloci never really gets a chance. I don't even know who the Broncos QB would be right now. But yeah, he had an odd career. Barrett Cherokee with the Desperados. Aram Ketchikan with Detroit. Why would the Lions pick him? They just had Clyde Williamson. So I guess Aram Ketchikan gets to back up Clyde Williamson again, just like in college at Georgia. How funny. Kareem Kamara, there he is. He's with the Oilers. Ernie Capillard to Minnesota. Scotty Kimbrell to the Orbits. And I think that's about it for notable QBs. All right, that'll bring us into the 4th season of the long-term sim. Where are we in? Like 2030 now, I think? It's hard to remember all these years. Anyway, where is... There, oh, I was already on it. L4. So the Bengals made the bowl, and we lost. But we made it! Progress! Finally, somebody other than Buffalo gets in. Believe it or not, though, we did not win the division. The Steelers go 14-3. I think us and the Steelers have made the playoffs every year of the long-term sim. Steamers and Ravens have been stuck at the bottom. Titans win the South. Texans get in as a wild card. Bills win the division. Chargers at 9-8 win the West. Raiders get in. Monarchs ended up winning the North 13-4. Dreads won the South. Carolina got in as well. Eagles got the number 1 seed. Dallas makes it in. Niners and Rams do as well. So the team we ended up losing to in the bowl was the Dreadnoughts, another championship for Joe Burrow. That's his 3rd, and his 2nd time beating us, unfortunately. Now, we did keep the game close, and I've got to see, how good did Daniel Godley play in that game? Actually, pretty good. Okay, I'll take it. So the reason why we made it is because the Bills lost in the first round to the Raiders, so we were able to dodge Buffalo, and we got to play the Texans, who we always beat, and then we beat the Steelers. Did the Monarchs do anything special? This was their best year. They won 13 games. They didn't do anything in the playoffs, but 13 wins is 13 wins. League history. So Joe Burrow won the OFL Bowl MVP, even though he wasn't that good. He won the regular season MVP, while Kelvin Pickney and Will Anderson win the Player of the Years. Justin Tucker and Adrian Moore win the Rookie of the Years. That brings us into the final Titans-related draft. This is the Season 4 class. There weren't really any good QBs here, but there are some other fun players. Running back Mookie Davis, in particular, Puma Whitlock's former college teammate. He, I think, was super highly rated. I want to say like 81 X Factor or something ridiculous like that. He was a beast. As for free agency this season, again, not a lot of movement. Max Crosby signs with the Steamers, and Joe Burrow, after winning the championship with the Dreadnoughts, signs with Baltimore. So he is now in our division. Melly Golden, the corner, was the number 1 pick. He's an 84 going to the Colts. Mookie Davis ends up on the Cougars. He's an 82. We might not have a quarterback go until like the 4th round. Would not surprise me. This QB class was mid as hell. Oh, Yahya Marshall went in the 1st round of the Raiders. Oh, so that means he's going to be like the greatest quarterback ever. The Raiders still had Denton Sens, though, who's been a pretty good player with them up to this point. That'll bring us into the 5th season. Or are we on the 6th? No, we're on the 5th season. Or no, it is the 5th. 2022 QB class in a nutshell. Yeah, but that class didn't have a Brock Purdy, though. I get that the narrative's out on him, but still. Anyway, the Patriots beat the Niners in the OFL Bowl, so finally it feels like we're starting to get a change of the guard in terms of which teams are really good and which teams are not. For the first time in all of OFL, sim year, regular OFL, and long-term sim, the Bengals missed the playoffs at 8-9. We had made it every single season. The Steelers win the North, and the Ravens with Joe Burrow grab a wild card. Texans win the South. Jets win the East. Patriots at 8-9 get a wild card spot. No Buffalo. It appears the dynasty in Orchard Park might be dead. Snowhawks win the West. Chargers get a playoff spot. Monarchs win the North. Panthers win the South. Dreads and Golden Eagles make the playoffs. I don't know who the Dreads QB would still be. I think they don't have Jalen Hurts at this point. Dallas went 16-1 with Justin Tucker and a completely new roster for the most part. Niners win 13 games while the Nighthawks grab a playoff spot as well. Let's take a look at what happened in the playoffs to bring us to a Patriots-Niners OFL Bowl. So New England was the 7th seed. They kill Houston. They beat the number 1 seeded Steelers, and then they squeak away from the Jets in the conference championship. As for San Fran, a little bit more straightforward. A lot of close wins, including a 3-point victory against the 16-win Cowboys in the NFC championship. So New England gets their second ring of the cycle. They won the first OFL Bowl with Josh Allen. And now they win another one here with Josh Allen in 2032. Interestingly, Josh Allen retired right after this game, which is awfully early for a quarterback, but he ended off on top. Can you blame him? Mahomes wins the MVP. Kelvin Pickney does not win the Offensive Player of the Year for the first time in the entire sim. Instead, it's Kiki Rodriguez with Dallas. Nick Bosa wins Depoy. Sammy Wusus and Okori Chibuke win the Rookie of the Years. Did my team do good yet? You have made the playoffs every season. No rings, no OFL Bowl appearances. And Kelvin Pickney won the first 4 Offensive Player of the Years. All right, now we don't have any more drafts to go over because we're out of Titans classes, so that'll bring us into Season 6. As for free agency, we had a lot more moves. Jonathan Taylor leaves the Bills, signs with the Chargers. Rashawn Gary signs with the Lions. Chris Olave to the Desperados. And Will Anderson reunites with his former teammates Jalen Carter and Jamar Chase with the Steelers. So the Bills are toast. They've lost pretty much all their key guys. Jonathan Taylor jumping ship proves to be a pretty good decision because, as you can see, the Chargers won the bowl. They won 16 games. They scored 600 points. Holy cow. I think Trevor Lawrence is still their quarterback for what it's worth. So the Bengals win the North. Steelers make the playoffs as a wild card. Again, Texans win the South. I think they've made it every year too. Jets win the East. Bills are back in as a wild card, despite the fact that they've lost like everyone. Chargers win the West. Snowhawks get a wild card. The Lions with Clyde Williamson win the North. Dreadnoughts win the South. Panthers get in as a wild card. Dallas wins 14 games. They win the East. Cougars get a wild card. Seattle and San Francisco make the playoffs as well. Where is Quinn Crew? That's a great question. I have no idea. I did not notice him at all during the sim. We lost in the first round of Portland because of course we did. The Bills beat Houston. Wow, they beat Houston. That's rare. It's happened, but it's rare. Then they get killed by the Chargers, who won all their games by multiple possessions. This Chargers team is probably the best team we've had so far in the sim. They won 16 games, and they blew out everybody in the playoffs. Trevor Lawrence won the regular season and OFL Bowl MVP. Jonathan Taylor wins the Offensive Player of the Year, and he, just like Josh Allen, retired on top. He won a championship, and then he said, I'm out. Matthias Zerberg in Houston won the Depoy. What have I missed? You guys have been basically the same team that you are always. Right around making the playoffs and not making it out of the first round. All right, on to Season 7. 4 more seasons like this, and then we're going to go right to the end. Do we still have Ritter? I believe at this point you did. Yes, Desmond Ritter was there a while. So it looks like we have the relocation team beating the Steelers. Who the relo team is, I don't know. We'll find out shortly. Is it the Nighthawks? It probably is because they're at the top by far. So the Steelers won the North. Ravens make the playoffs. I missed this dream. You haven't missed, like, that much. I mean, I guess 6 seasons is kind of a lot. Did you do anything? So the Texans have made the playoffs every season. You guys have not made an OFL Bowl, or won one. Matthias Zerberg did just win a Defensive Player of the Year. Oh, free agents. Good call. There was actually a handful of pretty big moves. So Micah Parsons signed with the Raiders. Patrick Mahomes signed with the Broncos. When I said that Romeo Colucci's career got killed by Denver, it's because they signed Mahomes. And then Cameron Dantzler signed with Seattle. They got their new J.C. Jackson. Anyway, the Raiders won 10 games. The Chargers come back down to earth. They win 9 and still get a playoff spot, while the Orbits win the East for the first time. Lions win the North. Panthers win the South at 8 and 9. Commies win the East. Cowboys and Cougars make the playoffs. Eagles miss out at 6 and 11 after losing Mahomes, which now that you're here, Nick and Nader, I will point out that the Eagles have had some really good seasons. A few number one seeds. You made the OFL Bowl twice, and you lost both times to Buffalo. As the Nighthawks win the West, Niners grab a playoff spot. We really need an elite running back, clearly. 1 year of Jonathan Taylor won you guys a championship. Nick and Nader equals Mahomes merchant. Well, lucky for him, he has a chance to potentially get Mahomes again with the number one pick in the fantasy draft, if he chooses to go that route. Yeah, so the Nighthawks did end up winning the OFL Bowl. They beat the Steelers 27-21 in overtime? No. Nice comeback, though, from the Steelers. And the best part about this game, hold on, I'm 95% sure the Nighthawks quarterback is Hayden Callaway. Yep. So, Hayden Callaway beats his former team and beats the guy who replaces him, Caleb Williams. If he doesn't, he should retire. What happened to Hayden? So the Steelers signed Caleb Williams the very first offseason. I don't know why. I mean, I guess for good reason. They've made the playoffs 7 years in a row. So naturally, Hayden Callaway leaves. He signs with the Nighthawks to replace Travis Flight. I don't know what happened to Travis Flight. He just kind of fell off the face of the earth. I have not noticed him at all during the sim. Look at this game, 49-52. Not even in overtime. Who are the QBs again? It's still Steven Universe and Mac Jones, with backups being Jorgensen Jupiter and Sterling Yorkshire. That's funny. A couple Big 12 guys. As for the league history, Hayden Callaway won the OFL Bowl MVP. Denton Sens wins the regular season MVP. Kelvin Pickney's back as an Offensive Player of the Year, his 5th, while Matthias Zerberg wins the Depoy. Who's my quarterback, or is Dak? Dak would be probably about, 45. I would have to assume he's gone. And Kevin wanted to see the this game. Ooh, AFC Championship, very close, 30-27. Both quarterbacks played well. Are we going to look at the all-time numbers yes, we're going to take a look at the records, the legacy scores, all that. We have 3 more seasons like this, and then we'll be at the end, which was 2050. All right, on to the 8th season of the sim. So there was no notable. Oh wait, no, that's the wrong season. So the one notable move in free agency was Denton Sens, who just won the MVP with the Raiders. He signs with Columbus, so he is now with the Explorers. I'm pretty sure IT would still be with the Bills at this point. Yes. So the Steelers went 16-1, another one-loss team. We also made the playoffs as a wild card. Colts finally make the playoffs for the first time in all of OFL 23. They have to be the last team to have never made it. The Oilers also grab a playoff spot, while the Texans miss out, I think, for the first time ever. Literally. The Jets at 8-9 win the East. The Bills are now officially toast at this point. Chargers at 12-5 win the West. I think the Chargers made it every year. Let's keep it that way going into OFL 24. As the Broncos make it as well with Patrick Mahomes, who's, how old is he at this point? He's got to be high 30s. The Lions win the North. Monarchs get in as well. Panthers win the South. Cowboys win the East. Eagles and Cougars get in too. And then the Nighthawks win the West. So the Steelers ended up winning the OFL Bowl. Who did they beat? Dallas. Dallas would still have had Justin Tucker at this point. Yeah, they beat the Eagles because apparently Nick owns Nickinator, I guess. This has made my day. I have had a bad day. Well, hopefully now it's a better day, now that you are a champion. And all 3 games were by multiple possessions. So very similarly to the Chargers team a couple seasons ago, they win 16 games. They win every game by multiple possessions. Who is the Eagles QB now? That's a great question. Why don't we take a quick look at everybody's quarterbacks? I don't want to go through rosters every year. We don't have time for that. But I think 8 years later would be a good time to check. Justin Pope wins the regular season MVP. Kelvin Pickney wins the OFL Bowl MVP, along with the Offensive Player of the Year. His 6th. Matthias Zerberg wins another DPOY. I believe that's his third. Pinckney and Zerberg might legitimately be the two best drafted players so far. Anyway, here's everybody's quarterbacks. The Bengals still have Daniel Godley. This looks like one of his best seasons. Good stuff. The Bills still have Isaiah Thomas in his 14th year. The Broncos have Mahomes, who's in year 20, and Romeo Colucci, who they're hoarding on the bench as a backup. Chargers still have Trevor Lawrence. Colts still have Connor Weston, who is still bad. Even though he developed well. He's a 98. But he just never was all that good of a player. So before you say anything, no, we did not make the bad decision by picking Daniel Godley over Connor Weston. Connor Weston's mid as hell. That's not true. He's not mid as hell. He sucks. The Commies have John Barrett, no more Mac Jones, and Steven Universe is the backup. That's funny. Alex Jackson out of Harvard is with the Cougars. Justin Tucker is still in Dallas. Kyler Murray is still with the Desperados after all these years. Q.J. Reddings is with the Dreadnoughts. Jalen Hurts is gone. After the final season of OFL 23, I think Jalen Hurts played like a half a season as a starter, and that's it. That was the end of the road for him. Fernando Garcia, who is this? He's the quarterback of the Eagles. They also have Kai Suggs Gardner. Denton Sens, as I mentioned, is with the Explorers. They're also wasting Isaiah Gordon on the bench. Justin Pope is still in San Francisco. Chris Sinclair is with the Geagles. Desmond Ridder is still on the Jets. Clyde Williamson is still on the Lions. Travis Flight is with the Monarchs. What has he done in his career? Because I never noticed him during the sim. Oh, that explains a lot. So he started for one more season, and then he was the backup for Hayden Callaway for a while, and then he comes here to London and has a fine season at 35 years old. The Nighthawks still have Hayden Callaway. The Oilers have Justin Herbert now. The Orbits still have Drake May. The Panthers still have Bailey Gabriel. The Patriots have Eric Buchanan, who I think is pretty good. The Raiders have C.J. Stroud. He had some good seasons, randomly. Yeah, he went up to Superstar. The Rams still have Caleb Sampson, who threw a lot of interceptions, 18. Ugh. The Ravens still have Joe Burrow and Alessandro De Cesnaro. Seattle still has Bryce Young. The Snowhawks still have Rufus Motley. The Steamers still have Carson Michaels. The Steelers have Caleb Williams, of course. Houston still has Lamar Jackson in his 19th season. He's regressed quite a bit at this point. He's a 77. I think this is probably right when he retired. They, I think, also still have Sean Tucker. No, this would have been right as he left. He stayed his entire career in Houston. He was really good, but I guess he just retired. The Titans now have Kevin Shasha, and the Vikings have Masaru Lee. Did we see who won the MVP? I feel like we did. Yeah, it was Justin Pope. We saw this. All right, on to season 9. 2 more seasons to go. Old man, and he's still cooking. Which old man? There's a lot of them. So, right as Lamar retires, I'm pretty sure, the Texans finally win a championship. Which is hilarious. Lawler and Zerberg better be lifers. Well, I got good news and I got bad news. Obviously, as you know, the good news is Matthias Zerberg. 3 Defensive Player of the Years. Need I say more? The bad news, Zach Lawler, after his rookie contract, left to join the Nighthawks. I imagine he's still there at this point. So the Chargers got the number 1 seed again, along with Dallas. These seem to be the 2 best teams, especially the Chargers. Why are the Chargers so good? Steelers win the North. The Steelers have made the playoffs every year of the sim. Bengals make a playoff spot as well. Texans back on top in the South after losing Lamar. The Bills back on top in the East. Orbits get a spot as well. Chargers win the West. Broncos get a wild card spot. Monarchs win the North. Panthers win the South. The Eagles sucked. Dallas wins the East. Cougars get a wild card spot. Washington has fallen from grace. They went 1-16. While the Rams make the playoffs for the first time since season 1 of the regular OFL. Not even at the sim. It's been 15 years. Niners and Nighthawks get in as well. While Seattle has been not a very good team during the sim, oddly enough. Daniel Godley led the league in passing again, by the way. I don't think he won MVP, but he was close. This was probably his second best year. So as we can see, the Texans beat the Bengals in a playoff game. Oh my God, I don't believe it. And then they demolished the Rams in the bowl. Had we gotten by Houston, we probably would have won this game. Which is kind of crazy to think about. Who was the Texans quarterback? That's a great question. I'm pretty sure he won the OFL Bowl MVP. Yes, Brian Seri. So Lamar Jackson's here for a good 15 years. He dips. The second he's gone, the Texans finally win the OFL Bowl. C.J. Stroud at 35 years old wins the MVP. At this point, he's like a 70-something overall, like a 73. The reason why he won the MVP is because he's on the Raiders. That explains it all. While Kiki Rodriguez and Will Anderson win the Players of the Year. Before we go into the last season, I gotta check, is this Brian Seri guy like a rookie? Or has he just been like a journeyman who was a starter and then poof? Okay, so he's been in the league a little while. He is an 80 with Superstar, 83 if you count Morale, out of Hawaii. And he's been Lamar's backup for the last couple of years. Was he a high draft pick by chance? He was. He was a first rounder in 2034. And I guess he was... Oh, Lamar's still here. Lamar gets his championship. He just rode the bench. I didn't know Lamar was still here at 40 years old. He now has a ring. The second he's gone. Wow, holy cow. This is one hell of a career. My goodness. I would have to imagine Lamar retired at this point. So the last offseason, pretty much nothing happened in free agency. And then this next offseason, the only super notable thing to happen was Bijan Robinson joining the Bengals. Josh Jacobs retired probably like 2 or 3 seasons ago. The offense hasn't been the same. So bringing in Bijan is a big get for us. And it proved to be a big deal because we won 14 games. Steelers make the playoffs again. I think that's 10 in a row. Colts win the South. Oilers grab a playoff spot while the Texans miss out after their bowl. The Orbits win the East. New England gets a playoff spot. Bills 5-12. The Broncos win the West. The Chargers miss out for the first time during the entire sim. Monarchs win the North. They have been consistently the best team here. Panthers win the South. They've been consistently very good. Cougars win the East. Eagles get a playoff spot. Dallas misses out. While the Seahawks win the West, Niners and Nighthawks make the playoffs. So Seattle finally makes the OFL Bowl for the first time ever. They ended up losing to the Orbits. Drake May gets a ring in Orlando. Oh my God. We made it to the conference championship and lost by 40. Well, at least we made it. Look at the Monarchs. They gave a tough fight to Seattle in the conference championship. And then, well, obviously Seattle lost to Oklahoma City. As for the league history tab, Hyman Crawley wins the OFL Bowl MVP. He's the first player to win an OFL Bowl MVP who was not in like the actual OFL. Actually second, after Brian Seri. Crawley was one of the guys from the Titans draft class. He was a linebacker out of, I think, North Carolina. I don't remember where he played in the actual series, though. Yeah, I can't think of it. I feel like he was pretty good, though, clearly, if he won the OFL Bowl MVP. Patrick Mahomes wins the regular season MVP. I think he's 42 years old at this point. His number one receiver, Carter Weston, wins the Offensive Player of the Year, while Matthias Zerberg wins the Depoy. And keep your eye on the Offensive Rookie of the Year, Trey Benson with the Rams. As you can imagine, he was in the slot for them. I think he ended up having a pretty good career with them. So now that we've made it through the actual 10 seasons, let's take a look at the overall final results. We simulated up to 2050. This is when everybody retired. The last person to leave... Can I find it? Here it is. The last person to leave was Daniel Godley. He retired after 25 seasons. He was 45 years old. All 25 seasons were with the Cincinnati Bengals. He never left us. So let's start with the league history. Is that new? The what? So where did we leave off? We left off on 2037. So I don't even know who won all of these OFL Bowls after 2037. So in 38, oh wait, no, we saw this one, right? No, the Orbits won it again, and Hyman Crawley won the OFL Bowl MVP again. What are the odds? They beat Carolina. Kerry Edmonds wins the regular season MVP. I don't know who that is. Kelvin Pickney wins another Offensive Player of the Year. Gilbert Smith wins Depoy. 2039, the Rams with Jeremy Faulkner win the Bowl. Luke Houghton wins the MVP. I don't know who these people are. I do know the Offensive and Defensive Player of the Years. They were from the Titans classes. Not a lot of our familiar faces are still around, as you can see. 2040, Maurice Barker wins the OFL Bowl MVP for Seattle, who beats Buffalo. So the Seahawks finally get a ring. Aiden Hutchinson's still around. He won the Depoy, still with the Nighthawks, while Justin Tucker won the MVP. 2041, the Dreadnoughts beat the Steelers with Kujay Reddings winning the OFL Bowl MVP. Trevor Lawrence won the MVP in Washington. Babatunde Mamadou's still around. He won the Depoy for the Lions. 2042, the Chargers beat the Panthers with Torian Wilson winning the OFL Bowl MVP. He was one of the guys in the Titans classes. John Barnett won the MVP. I've won a bazillion Coach of the Years, by the way. Actually, Pepperjack had like 3 in a row there. Holy cow. It's only me and Pepperjack. 2043, Bills make it again. They lose to the Panthers with Alex Younger winning the OFL Bowl MVP. Any relations to Jay Younger, perhaps? Another Coach of the Year for Pepperjack. Zach Looker with the Jets won the MVP. And apparently the Steelers have their new Kelvin Pickney replacement, Josh Virgil, who wins the Offensive Player of the Year. Was he a rookie nearby? Nope. 2044, the Steelers beat the Seahawks. Josh Virgil wins the OFL Bowl MVP. Denton Sens is still around. He wins the MVP with the Nighthawks, while Akin Fenwa with the Orbits has won a couple of Depoys. 2045, the Cowboys and the Bills rematch. Dallas gets the edge, and Justin Tucker wins the OFL Bowl MVP. Another Coach of the Year for Pepperjack. He's got like 7. 2046, the Steelers beat the Dreadnoughts. Josh Virgil wins the OFL Bowl MVP again, aligned with the Offensive Player of the Year. Cyrus Okpoko wins Depoy. Kevin Donald with the Eagles wins the MVP. 2047, the Panthers beat the Chargers. It's like the same 4 teams in the bowl. Larry Carlisle wins the OFL Bowl MVP. Braxton McConnell wins the MVP with the Texans. And Trey Benson, that receiver I told you to keep your eye on, won the Offensive Player of the Year. 2048, the Vikings beat the Steelers. Randy Fleck wins the OFL Bowl MVP. Justin McConnell wins the MVP. Is that the same guy? No. Are they like siblings? Braxton and Justin McConnell, back-to-back MVPs. 2049, Panthers over the Steelers again. Adam Weber wins the MVP. Josh Virgil wins the Offensive Player of the Year. And last but not least, 2050, the Raiders finally win a championship. They beat the Lions, 2 teams so I don't think I've ever made it. Floyd Bartow wins the MVP. Ryan Mackey wins the regular season MVP. And another Offensive Player of the Year for Josh Virgil. I don't know if you guys noticed a trend here, but there's no Bengals. Daniel Godley never won a championship. He made it once. And only once. So we did not end up winning a ring in the entire cycle, which is odd, as you'll see here with the, as we take a look at the coaching stats, we were at the top of the wins for a while. We got passed up late. Now you're going to notice that the wins and losses are a little bit glitched. The Monarchs do not have 6 wins. The winning percentage is the best way to go here. So the Steelers have by far the best winning percentage. They were the most consistent team during the sim, and it was not close. After them, we had the Cowboys, the Nighthawks, the Bengals, the Bills. A lot of the teams you would expect. Maybe not so much Carolina. Pepperjack and the Oilers had some great seasons late. Did anybody go exactly 500? No, the Chargers were the closest. I'm surprised they went under. That's a major surprise. They were great for a while. I guess they kind of fell off in the 2040s. The worst team overall ended up being the Baltimore Ravens, followed by the Snowhawks, Steamers, and Desperados. They all had a winning percentage lower than 400. Winning seasons, this will be interesting. The Steelers had 24 out of, how many seasons did we have total? I think 28. Let me think, because Godley played 25 seasons, 29 seasons. I should have just simulated one more year just so we could get through the full 30 seasons. Damn, I didn't even realize we were that close. So with 29 seasons, the Steelers had the most winning seasons at 24. Nighthawks were in second. Panthers at 21, and they, I think, only had one winning season during the actual OFL. So they were really good in the long-term sim. As for the bottom of the list, didn't somebody have like 3? The Steamers had 3 winning seasons. Ouch. Ravens and Dreads had, or Desperados at 4, Snowhawks at 6, Colts rebounded at the end with 9. Playoff wins. The Bills had the most, followed by the Steelers, Panthers, there's the Cowboys. We were high up there for a while, and then we just kind of fell off at the end. I believe there were 3 teams who never won a playoff game in the entire 29-year cycle. The Desperados, the Ravens, and the Steamers. Also, everybody did not go 500. This is glitched. So, I know that seems off because it is. OFL Bowls. The Bills ended up with the most this cycle with 4. The Steelers had 3, the Panthers had 3, the Cowboys had 3, the Chargers, the Dreads, the Orbits, and the Patriots all had multiple. Seattle, OKC, Houston, Washington, Vegas, the Rams, and the Vikings got 1. And then the teams with 0. The Cougars, Niners, Jets, Eagles, Monarchs, Broncos, Lions, Oilers, Snowhawks, Colts, Bengals, Explorers, Geagles, Titans, Desperados, Ravens, and Steamers. We are all poverty together. OFL Bowl losses. The Bills also had the most at 5. They went under 500 in OFL Bowls, as did the Steelers, 3 and 4. Here are we, 0-2. The Eagles also went 0-2. Teams who made it and lost, only the Niners and the Lions. And then the Monarchs, Jets, Broncos, Cougars, Vikings, Raiders, Oilers, Texans, Nighthawks, Snowhawks, Colts, Orbits, Explorers, Geagles, Titans, Desperados, Ravens, and Steamers never made it. Although technically the Titans and the Cougars did in the sim year, if you want to count that. Where do we go next? Let's have the Daniel Godley discussion, because I feel like we got to talk about him. He had the highest legacy score of any drafted player in the series. And actually, he was 3rd overall entirely, only behind Patrick Mahomes and Mark Williams, who was one of the players from the Titans classes. So other than Mahomes, the highest legacy score of anybody who was in our OFL this year was Daniel Godley. Godley isn't a whole... Godley played in the league 25 years. I don't care that he didn't win anything. I'm going to show you how he had a Hall of Fame career. So he started for 25 years as the quarterback of the Bengals. And a lot of his seasons were cut off, including his MVP season, which I think was 2030. So the 2030s was, I guess, his prime. He started to probably decline around here. And then in the 2040s, he just was not really the same player. But he was still like a fine enough starter. Bro is Phillip Rivers, but better. The 2 guys that I had in my head for him were Phillip Rivers and then Matt Ryan, because Matt Ryan has an MVP. So he's basically Matt Ryan, but if Matt Ryan played for like a quarter century. So let's take a look at his all-time career stats. This will prove why he is a Hall of Famer. That's the wrong button. Daniel Godley finished with 120,000 career passing yards. Did he ever win a championship? No. Was he elite consistently? No. Can you leave him out of the Hall of Fame? No. You cannot throw for 120 yards and not make the Hall of Fame. Mahomes and Trevor Lawrence also threw for over 1,000 yards, or over 100,000 yards. Only familiar faces on this list. Godley did not break the touchdown record. He was 2nd. Mahomes has him beat. Mahomes played until he was like 43 as well. Again, all pretty much familiar faces. Rushing champion was Kenneth Walker. Played pretty much his entire career with the Colts. Poor guy was wasted. Followed by Jonathan Taylor, Kelvin Pickney, and Josh Jacobs, and then Jenkins here, who I think was an auto-gen player, who all had over 20,000. Nick Chubb is all the way down here, yet I was told that he was better than Josh Jacobs. Rushing touchdowns is this Jenkins gentleman, with 254. Jonathan Taylor close behind. Jaeger Smirnoff finished in 4th. That's a real surprise to me. All right. The receiving numbers are the most interesting. So, I'm just going to be blunt here. Somebody got 30,000 receiving yards. Would we like to guess who? If anyone gets it right, you get a cookie. Did that say T. Brady on the Dreadnoughts? Yes, the Dreadnoughts used to be the Buccaneers, so that's why. Hints. It's going to be someone that we all know. Neil. Neil was the Rams guy. That Rams guy. Mike Evans. Okay, so it was not Mike Evans. It was not Brian Neal. Somebody did get it. Amon-Ra St. Brown got 30,000 receiving yards. 30,000. He was in the league, I think, 23 seasons, all of which were with the Eagles, by the way. He just didn't retire, and he got 30,000 yards. Jerry Rice who? Insert Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's a lot of interesting names here. Jerry Rice is still here. We have Justin Jefferson. Benson. This was the guy I told you to keep your eye on. De'Aaron Washington was part of the Titans class. Christian Kirk. Philip Lewis. He was the tight end the Jets drafted in our final draft. Chris Olave. Danny Blaze. And Marvin Harrison Jr. As you can imagine, Amon-Ra led in the other categories as well. Touchdowns he led by like 70. There's Leonard Hand, Ben Mixon, Brandon Ayuk. And then catches, obviously, Amon-Ra had 2,000. Interestingly, Philip Lewis got second. Dr. Doof made the list, along with Kyle Pitts. Shout out Dr. Doof. Amon-Ra not winning an Offensive Player of the Year is insane. He had some seasons with like close to 2,000 yards. Sacks. So obviously we had some great pass rushes throughout this series. I would say the most dominant duo, actually, the most dominant was probably Parsons and Anderson. After them, Matthias Zerberg and Rashawn Gary, who combined for 600 sacks on the dot. Neither of them were the all-time leader, though. Mark Williams with the Dreadnoughts, he was one of the players from the Titans classes, had 307. So he barely edged out Zerberg and Gary. We also had Aiden Hutchinson, Micah Parsons, Will Anderson, former number 1 pick Noah Knight, Myles Garrett, Akeem Fenwa, and Gilbert Smith. Interceptions. Nobody touched it. I think Cam Dantzler got like 40. I doubt anyone had more than that. All right, season. The all-time passing yards leader is Daniel Godley by over 200. Put some respect on his name. Hall of Famer. Had a few guys here. Denton Sens, Daniel Godley again. Desmond Ridder made it twice. Mahomes made it twice. Passing touchdowns is still Peyton Manning. Justin Tucker joined the 51 club. Nobody else had 50. A few guys had 49, though. Rushing yards. Josh Jacobs in 2025. Should have won the MVP that year, probably. Mookie Davis in 2040 with the Cougars got 2,100. Did anybody else get 2,000? Yes, Jenkins in 2041 with the Commanders. Rushing touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor and Josh Jacobs in 2029 each got 29 and 28. Javonte Williams at 26. 2027 would have been during actual OFL. When did he get 26 touchdowns? I don't remember this. Yeah, that would have been the last season. I do not remember this happening. There's ETN, Kelvin Pickney, Jenkins, Williams. Who's this? I don't know who that is, but he got 25. Receiving yards. Oh, Lord. Okay, I knew the Benson guy was good. Did not know he was this good. He has the top 5 seasons in receiving, including 1 year with 2,200 yards. That's absurd. Then we have Calvin. Then we have Boo Boo Drame in 2040. Benson, Cooper Kupp, and Benson. Who needs Brian Neal when you have Trey Benson, who's like way better? Receiving touchdowns. Connor Weston at 25. Boo Boo Drame at 25. Number of guys with 23 and 22. Pretty much everybody here is from OFL other than Moss, Kupp, and Rice. Catches. Still Michael Thomas. Benson was close. He had 142, 142, 137. Walton here made it twice. I don't know who that is. Sacks. Oh, God. What's the high? Is it going to be Rashawn Gary? I have to think it's still Rashawn Gary. Yes, but his teammate, Matthias Zerberg, tied him 11 years later with 32. Zerberg is next on the list again with 30. Parsons, Zerberg, Crosby, Zerberg, Garrett, Mark Williams, and Von Miller. 26 is the last guy on the list. Holy cow. Interceptions. These are not being touched. Not a chance. Not everybody can be Cardell Simpson, who... was Cardell Simpson ever relevant in this sim? I don't think he was. Probably because he was on the Snowhawks. Did we have any in-game records break? We nearly had the passing yards record break by Rhodes. He was off on Norm Van Brocklin's record from 100 years prior by 13 yards. Passing touchdowns. Nobody got more than 7. We have gotten guys with 7. Hector Estrada III. When did Isaiah Thomas had 7 touchdowns in a game? This would have been season 2. When did this happen? Rushing yards. Adrian Peterson's record intact. Kelvin Pickney was the closest. He's actually the only guy. Actually, Yegor Smirnov was the closest. In 2036. Rushing touchdowns. Nevers with 6 is still the record. Anybody on the list? Virgil. Josh Virgil with the Steelers at 5. Receiving yards. Anderson's record unbroken. Actually, the only guy here, Amon-Ra St. Brown in 2029 had 286. That's a lot. Receiving touchdowns, still 5. We had a few guys add to the list of 5. Deebo Samuel in 2028. Marvin Harrison in 2034. Deshaun Groves in 2036. Benson, Drame, Benson again. Catches. Still Brandon Marshall with 21. Noah Fant had 18. Noah Fant had an absurd career. There's a few tight ends who were just like, wow. JMO had 17 catches in a game in the sim year. Did not know about this. Sacks. Oh, God. Rashawn Gary with 9 is still the record in week 18 of season 2. I thought he had 10. Maybe it was 9. In season 1, Crosby had 6. In season 3, Bosa had 6. Trey Hendrickson had 6 for last year. I remember that game. And then this guy Brackett had 6 as well. Interceptions, still 4. Nobody's going to be on the list. And that's it for records. Let's take a look at the legacy leaderboard. So as we know, in terms of players, Mahomes is at the top. In terms of coaches, SG is at the top, followed by Nick, Lenny, me, and Mr. Rob. Or actually, not even Mr. Mr. Rob was here for like a minute. So, I guess just the Panthers' revolving door. Who was last? Probably one of the teams with no playoff wins. Yeah, Pokemon with the Steamers got the last spot. Last ever OFL stream. We're streaming OFL tomorrow. What are you talking about, silly goose? All right, legacy leaderboard. Do we want to go by positions or do we just want to go down the whole thing? How do you guys think we should do it? No way I was 20. Your team was not very good during the sim at all. They disappointed you. I really need to do better. Well, to be fair, you weren't able to control your team the last 20 years. Everyone wants position. Okay. We can do position, then we can take a quick look at the whole thing at the end. So at quarterback, pretty much every relevant QB makes the Hall of Fame in this game. Daniel Godley will make it. 54,000 is more than enough. The benchmark to get in is usually around 15,000. Trevor Lawrence was next, which is interesting. He had quite the career revival with the Chargers. Give him credit. I haven't made a board, but I promise you better be fast. What about the other picks, though? Don't you want to be prepared? Lamar, Pope, Justin Tucker was the best QB of the actual long-term sim. Burrow, Caleb Williams was good once he left Detroit. There's Ritter, Dak, Young, Hayden Callaway, Sens. Tom Brady's 14th. Kyler, Isaiah Thomas, Herbert, Bailey Gabriel, Carson Michaels. Yeah, they're handing out Hall of Fames to everyone. Connor Weston sucked. Why is he in the Hall of Fame? They're literally handing out Hall of Fame spots to anyone. Kujay Reddings, Faulkner, he must have been drafted during the sim. Kevin Shasha, Stroud, Clyde. I don't even know who that is. There's Brian Seri, he's still around. Josh Allen. Rufus Motley's a Hall of Famer. What happened to the game I once loved? Drake May. Drake May should have been higher. Oh, did Drake May not win a championship with the Orbits? Oh, they would have had somebody else. And then there's Jalen Hurts barely sneaking in because he only played half of the season after the final season of the regular OFL. No Mac Jones. That's odd. How does Mac Jones not make it, but Connor Weston has a legacy score of like 25,000? 27. Let's be serious. Running back, Jonathan Taylor was the champ, closely followed behind by Jacobs, Pickney. This guy Jenkins is still in the league. How old is he? He's 38. Raydarius Jenkins. This name goes hard. So this guy was drafted in 2034, and he was pretty good. There's his 2,000-yard season, mostly with Washington, and spent the last few years with Columbus, where he was also really good. Was Dak better on the Rams or the Eagles? Probably the team that he won the MVP with. Just a thought. Josh Virgil is still around on the Steelers. He's 34 and understandably regressing. So the Steelers have just had unbelievably elite running back play over the last 25 years. That's insane. That's like going from Favre to Rodgers. Kiki Rodriguez, Kenneth Walker, Bijan Robinson, Mookie Davis. There's Nick Chubb all the way in 11th. I was told he's better than Josh Jacobs. They were wrong. Derrick Henry's a Hall of Famer. There's Zeke. I don't know who this guy is. Yeager Smirnov is a Hall of Famer. Joe Mixon. And there's Adrian Peterson. Fullback. Nothing of note. Receiver. Trey Benson barely edges out Amon-Ra St. Brown at the top. I think Benson would have just retired, so he makes the Hall of Fame. He could have touched Amon-Ra's record if he played like 20 years, but he definitely did not. There's Jefferson, Deaton Washington, Leonard Hand, Brian Neal, that's the other Rams guy, Devin Wilcox, Drame, Harrison, Kyle Pitts, yes, he's a receiver, don't forget, Ben Mixon, Danny Blaze, Keyshawn Booth is a Hall of Famer, Cooper Kupp, Treylon Burks, JSN, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Hopkins, Olave, Ayuk. There's Julio. Calvin Mentor barely gets in. Tight end. A lot of really good tight ends. Nobody was better, though, than Phillip Lewis. I think he would have won both of his championships with the Chargers. Dr. Doof close behind. Dawson Knox had a ridiculous career. A few guys drafted late, such as St. George and James. There's Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Noah Fant, Bam Bam Sam Laporta, Brock Bowers, Hawkinson, Mayer. George Kittle's a Hall of Famer. Isaiah Likely got in. Bengal legend, Houday. We've had a Hall of Famer at every position. On the offensive line, Tristan Wirfs, who would have won 6 championships. Wow. Trent Williams, Tyron Smith, Lane Johnson, Jason Peters, Quentin Nelson, Zach Martin. No centers, no right guards, and then Penei Sewell at right tackle. On the defensive side of the ball, Mark Williams was the best player drafted during the long-term sim with the Dreads. Micah Parsons not far behind him. Obviously, Rashawn Gary's up here. Joey Bosa, Max Crosby, Danielle Hunter, Chase Young. John Johnson's a Hall of Famer. Noah Knight at defensive tackle dominates this list. Then we have Jalen Carter. Fanu Olurosu's a Hall of Famer. Quentin Williams, J.J. Watt, obviously. Matthias Zerberg, of course, very high on the list. Aiden Hutchinson, not far behind, as is Will Anderson and Myles Garrett. Von Miller, Gilbert Smith, Aaron Donald, Nick Bosa, Brandon Fitzgerald. Rob Burnham was a Hall of Famer. Miles Murphy got in. Kayvon Thibodeau got in. George Charbonnet. At linebacker, Babatunde Mamadou barely squeaks it over T.J. Watt. Dallas Turner got in. So did Quan Long and Trayvon Walker. The best off-ball linebacker of this cycle. Gerson McWilliams, he was in the last regular draft. He was one of the 8 Kentucky players drafted in the first round. He's a Hall of Famer. Nick Bolton gets in. Christian Harris. Nakobe Dean. Patrick Queen. Fred Warner, obviously. Miles Jack. Roquan. B. Wags. Tremaine Edmonds. Victor Boswell. Shaq Leonard. Devin White. Kyle Hamilton. Mike Oxsmall. Chris Barnes is a Hall of Famer. Okay, that's a weird one. Jordan Brooks. Noah Sewell. Cyrus Okpoko leads at right outside linebacker. J.O.K. is a Hall of Famer, so is Jeremy Chin. Khalil Mack, Alex Highsmith, Kenneth Murray. Corner, Christian Gonzalez finishes at the top of the list. Over, James Bradford and Trayvon Diggs, who fall shortly behind. Pat Pete. We had 4 Hall of Fame corners. No Greg Newsome. No J.C. Jackson. All your favorite corners are not here. No Pat Surtain. No Cameron Dantzler. Jeez. I mean, at least Trayvon Diggs made it. Free safety. No one. Strong safety. Buda Baker. Gabe Feldstad. He was not in the actual OFL. The only safety who made the Hall of Fame who was actually here was Buda Baker. Justin Tucker gets in despite missing 3 kicks in a playoff game. And that's about it. This game hates defensive backs and offensive linemen, I guess. So how many Hall of Famers are we going to end up with? My guess is like 150. I see how it is. That's the only memory I have of Justin Tucker this cycle. I had to say it. Oh, it's way over 150. It's probably going to be like 200. Trayvon Diggs, the 161st best player this cycle. Yeah, Daniel Godley's in 3rd. It's more than 200. 232. Now, some of these guys are coaches. Some of these guys were already in. It's probably more like only 200. But there you go. Isaiah Likely, top 200 player in this year's OFL cycle. I'll take that as a win. Greg Newsome, not a top 200 player this cycle. Maybe Nick should not have gotten Greg Newsome over Isaiah Likely. Just a thought. Like 1 in 3 people aren't in the... I just had a stroke reading that. Are you okay? So before we finish things off, there's one more thing I would like to show you guys. So now that Daniel Godley's gone, all the players who have been here in this OFL cycle are out of the league. Or at least that's what I thought. Kadarius Toney is a 12 overall. He's 52 years old. He's a 12 overall. Look at some of these stats. Route running, 10. Catching, 23. He still has 87 speed, though. He can still move. He can't change direction, though, 24. He literally has not played in like 20 years. So, let's go to the top. The last time he played a game was 2031. He's been chilling on their bench for literally 20 years. He's the OFL's Udonis Haslem. He played 17 games as a 51-year-old receiver. Did they have him kick return? That's got to be elder abuse. He was the kick returner. As a 51-year-old. Were there any other super old guys? We still have... Oh, wow, there's a lot of receivers, including Bryson Smith, who's 44. I don't think there was any, at least that I know. Oh, there's a running back, 47-year-old Julius Bryant, 37-year-old David Molden. Tim Lucas, I don't think he really counts because he's a QB. Who would have thought Kadarius Toney would be the last man standing? Not me. Doesn't look like there's many other old guys who are just chilling. Not that many Udonis Haslems. Oh, there's one. 55 overall. James Henry. Still on the Raiders. And then kickers and punters don't really count because these guys are always old. Although this guy's a 58. How is he still around? There's only 2 pure 99s. Tehran Generals, that's a sick name. And Dakota Callaway, that's also a sick name. The best quarterback, Floyd Bartow with the Raiders. I still cannot get over the fact that Kadarius Toney's a 12. How does someone get that bad? Yet he's still fast. Or at least fast enough. He has one speed lower than Jason Evans, who's a 96. Can we sim a little until Tony hangs it up? Well, here's the problem. There's only one more season that we can do. I guess we can sim it if you want. Simulating takes surprisingly quick. It's only like 5 minutes. In hindsight, I feel like I could have gone through the long-term sim live because simming went a lot faster than I thought it would. But we also probably would have ended up having a 3-hour stream rather than a 1-hour stream. But maybe we can keep this in the memory bank for Madden 24. Bro is a 12 overall in real life. Tags. Bridge player. Alright, well, we also get to see Daniel Godley in the Hall of Fame officially. Unless the game doesn't put him in, which, I mean, his legacy score is 55,000. I wonder what Kadarius Toney's legacy score is. He's not a Hall of Famer, even though he's been in the league for 30 years. What was Greg Dortch's legacy score? It was not good enough to be shown, clearly. If your player was not in the Hall of Fame, then they're just going to, like, disappear. And that includes Greg Dortch. Maybe this will be Greg Dortch's year because we made him an 80 with Superstar. Hall of Fame class announced. Daniel Godley, Raydarius Jenkins, and Akeem Fenwa all in the Hall of Fame. You know the Wizards guards play no defense when Anthony Black is about to drop 25. Yeah, so here's Daniel Godley, Hall of Famer. Where is Kadarius Toney? Oh, I have to do it by first name? Great. Imagine being in the league. Forget 20 years. He's been in the league 30 years. And he did now. Okay, we're getting close. 6,712. Not good enough, Kadarius. All right, let's simulate one more year and see what happens. Maybe the Bengals are actually going to championship this year. Imagine that, right when Daniel Godley leaves. Who is the new quarterback? I did not skip Greg Dortch. He's not there. The new quarterback is... Oh, God, he's a 75. Caleb Fargas. At least he's a rookie. Okay, then I guess I can live with it. If it's the last year of the bowl... It doesn't play? Oh, so I guess no range for the Bengals. Boo-hoo. How's it been 30 years and my team is still in 82? Because your team has made, like, changes? You don't exactly have any of the same players left. How old would we be? I mean, if it's 2051, probably close to 50s. Except for you children. Then maybe not. But yeah, we'd be old as hell. Almost as old as 51-year-old Kadarius Toney. Is OFL still going to be a thing in 2051? Don't count on it. Hopefully by then you will have children. That might not be the case, considering you have your STD, Hector. Almost as old as Aiden. Speaking of Aiden, oh God. Subtract 51 from your social security number and post it in chat. Okay, so then in that case, I would be 27. That's the number. It's just 27. Use it as you wish, Lenny. Anyway, while I have 5 minutes of your attention, I guess, as we know, the OFL draft will start tomorrow. What is currently winning the poll? I know everyone wants tomorrow. Currently, it looks like 2 p.m. is the leader in the doghouse. 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. are also still in the running. So, obviously, I encourage that you make a draft board and you try to be prepared. That makes things quicker for you, for me, and for everybody else. It also gives your team more structure, and it's more likely your team will be better. We do have a spreadsheet that is going to be made that's going to make things easy to follow. I don't know who is going to be doing the spreadsheet yet, but we have one ready and available. I'm really lost on what to do at 21, but I have nothing going on. I mean, there's going to be really good players available on the board. So, like last year, I think I picked at 23. I got Chase Young out of that. I could have also gotten TJ Watt. We will not be making a draft board. We will be unprepared, that means. 4-13. Awesome. It's a rematch. The Lions and the Raiders again for a second straight year. Have 23 and 33. Oh, God. So this is how the playoffs went. Did the Raiders win another championship, or do the Lions finish things off for the save file? 43-year-old me winning an OFL Bowl. Not happening, clearly, unless you're on the Raiders now. And here we go. This is the end. We've made it all the way to the end of the save file. I wonder if it's just going to stay forever simulating. Like it just doesn't stop. Oh, there you go. That's the end of the road. Who won the bowl? We didn't even see. I can't even click league history. I can't click. Oh, now I can. The Raiders won again. Christopher Arsenio wins the game's MVP. AJ Knox wins the regular season MVP. I don't know if I've ever personally gotten to the end of Madden franchise. I've seen other people do it. I don't know if I have, though. All right, my next question. It's so much slower now that we're like the end. Oh, God, this guy had an awful rookie season. He had an 80 passer rating. Jeez. While we're here, let's hop on 24 and do the draft. That's a great idea. The problem is I haven't started my preparation. Where is Kadarius Toney? Has he moved up by chance? From 40. He moved down. Well, I guess that's because other people passed him. Okay, that's not as funny as I thought it would be. He's still on New England. He's still at 12. He's been like 30 years. Actually, I guess this would be his 31st season. Did he play at all? No. Did he kick return at all? Yes, he did. That's still elder abuse. He got 27 yards, though. What do you need to prepare? No, I mean like prepare my own personal draft board. The league is set up. That's how I already had the draft order. But like for my own team is what I mean. I think that just about does it. OFL 23 is now in the books. I'd like to thank everybody here or everybody who's not here currently for another great OFL cycle. And I am looking forward to getting started on OFL 24, which will be tomorrow. Again, 2 o'clock is the leading time in the doghouse. I'll probably have an official announcement of the time tonight. So hopefully everyone's good with the time I pick. Regardless if you can make it or not, I would encourage you to have a draft board prepared. Even if you're going to be there, like you don't even have to technically send me the board, but still just have like something prepared just so, again, you'll be able to build your team with good structure. You know what you're doing. You have a plan going into it. And best of all, for everybody else, we keep things moving quickly because obviously 25 rounds is a lot. Should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody there. And, yeah, that just about does it. Again, thank you guys all for another great OFL cycle. And hopefully 24 ends up being even better.